a man walked through a parking area while getting ready to leave. He got into his car without realizing that danger was lurking nearby. Without any warning, another man suddenly appeared and killed him on the spot. Strangely, the killer didn't look panicked or rushed at all. Calmly, he took a small book belonging to the victim, some kind of personal notebook, then simply walked away, leaving the man's body lying lifeless in the parking area. Somewhere else, a man entered an office building with two other men. His movements were calm and confident as they walked toward someone who seemed to be the head of the accounting department. At first, everything looked completely normal, but unexpectedly, the man suddenly attacked the two guards standing nearby and threw a baseball straight at the accounting manager's face. The next morning, a man was seen entering a train station and sitting in a quiet hallway. The man's name was Nick. Nick was waiting for the next train to arrive. Hours passed, and after waiting for too long, Nick eventually fell asleep in his seat. Some time later, Nick woke up because of the presence of a man in a wheelchair sitting not far from him. The man stared at him in a strange way before starting a conversation. In a quiet voice, he spoke as if he wanted to tell an important story. Nick started losing interest and tried to stop the conversation.
I wasn't asking for the time. I was just saying there was a time.
However, the man kept talking and introduced himself as Good Cat. After that, Good Cat began telling his story. His tone was calm, but it sounded serious, as Good Cat talked about a man named Max and a group of criminals involved in the horse racing world years ago. Back then, horse racing wasn't just ordinary entertainment. It had become an obsession for many people. Everyone placed huge bets, hoping to become rich overnight. Max was tempted by that world too, just like most other people.
Number 7 is fielding
One day, Max heard about a horse that was supposedly guaranteed to win the next big race. Trusting the information too much, Max decided to take a very dangerous step. He borrowed money from the mafia to place a huge bet. On the day of the race, Max brought his young son with him. When they arrived at the location, Max told the boy to wait in the car and said he wouldn't be long. The boy looked a little upset, especially because he knew his father was gambling with borrowed money. Max tried to calm him down by saying that this win could secure their future. Max even said the money could later be used to pay for his son's education at Harvard. Max wanted his son to grow up to become a doctor. He had big hopes for his family and truly believed that everything he was doing would work out.
Love you, kiddo.
Love you too.
The rumor about the horse that was supposed to win had completely convinced Max. Full of hope, Max entered the stadium and waited for the race to begin. But without Max realizing it, the race had actually been fixed from the start. In the middle of the race, the horse Max had bet on suddenly collapsed.
Max woke up to find that his dream.
In an instant, all of his hopes were completely shattered. In fact, even before the race started, someone involved in fixing the race had already warned Max. He was told that failing to repay money to the mafia could end very badly, but Max chose to ignore it and kept hoping everything would go according to plan.
Get 9-1 if this.
Yeah.
After the race ended, Max returned to the parking lot, but when he got there, his car was already gone. His son had disappeared too. At that moment, Max realized that the worst had truly happened. The mafia had kidnapped his son. Not long after that, Max was kidnapped as well. He was brutally tortured as punishment for losing money he never actually had in the first place. In the end, the mafia killed Max's wife and his only son. Back at the train station, right after Good Cat finished telling the whole story, he slowly stood up from his wheelchair. Without warning, he suddenly slammed Nick in the face and strangled him to death with a cold expression, not showing even the slightest bit of hesitation. After that, Good Cat casually placed Nick's body into the wheelchair and took him toward the parking lot. On the other side of the city, a young man named Slevin was standing in the bathroom while cleaning shaving cream off his face. Suddenly, loud knocking came from the apartment door. Slevin, who was only wearing a towel, walked over and opened the door, and then a woman suddenly walked in. Her name was Lindsay. Lindsay looked surprised, not because Slevin was only wearing a towel, but because she thought the person in the apartment was her friend Nick, the owner of the place. Slevin immediately realized the misunderstanding and started casually joking about the way Lindsay knocked on the door. He said that based on the sound of her knocking, he imagined Lindsay would be much taller than she actually was. Lindsay laughed after hearing the comment and seemed pretty impressed by the way Slevin noticed small details. As they kept talking, Lindsay noticed that Slevin's nose looked bruised and slightly swollen. She asked what happened, and Slevin started explaining everything. A few days earlier, Slevin's life had completely fallen apart. He had just lost his job, and feeling devastated, he decided to visit his girlfriend. But when he arrived there, he found her sleeping with another man.
What, like he tripped and you fell?
It was an accident.
Heartbroken and mentally exhausted, Slevin chose to leave the city. He decided to fly to New York to stay temporarily with his close friend Nick. As soon as he arrived in New York, Slevin immediately tried to contact Nick. While talking on the phone, a stranger approached him and asked for a cigarette. Slevin didn't pay much attention to the man, but suddenly the stranger started asking for money. Before Slevin could even react, the man punched him hard in the nose. Strangely, the attacker didn't take Slevin's suitcase or his expensive watch at all. After hearing the story, Lindsay immediately realized something was off. According to her, if it had really been a normal robbery, Slevin's valuables would have definitely been gone. Slevin started becoming impressed by how observant Lindsay was, but at the same time, he also felt that she liked pressuring people too much with her questions. Lindsay then asked about Nick's whereabouts. Slevin admitted that Nick still hadn't shown up at all. Even though they had agreed to meet at the apartment, Nick was nowhere to be found. Since the door was unlocked, Slevin had simply let himself in and decided to wait inside. In the middle of their conversation, the apartment phone suddenly rang. Slevin answered it, but the person on the other end immediately hung up without saying anything. Curious, Lindsay tried calling back the last incoming number. She waited a few seconds before quickly hanging up and pretending she had dialed the wrong number. But from that short call, Lindsay managed to figure out that the call had come from a place called Hotel Cheval. Lindsay's curiosity immediately grew even bigger. She started believing that Nick might be in trouble and that the call from the hotel could be an important clue. To her, the whole situation already felt like a mystery that needed to be solved.
A clue to what?
You're here, he's not, the door was open, and bad things.
Lindsay eventually left for work, but without realizing it, she forgot to take the sugar she originally wanted to borrow from Nick. As Slevin dropped his towel while getting dressed, Lindsay suddenly came back and accidentally saw the embarrassing moment. Instead of freaking out, she just laughed casually and invited Slevin to meet again later so they could investigate Nick's disappearance together.
It's very, Andy Griffin.
No.
Not long after Lindsay left, another loud knock came from the apartment door. Two large men with intimidating faces immediately forced their way inside. They claimed to work for someone called the boss and were convinced that Slevin was Nick. Slevin tried explaining that his wallet and identification had been stolen when he was attacked earlier, but the two men didn't care. They said they had been ordered to bring whoever was staying in the apartment.
The cat's name is Nick now.
No, it's the boss Elvis. That's me.
Without saying much, they beat Slevin up and dragged him to a luxurious apartment where the boss lived. The boss turned out to be a very powerful and dangerous man. His name was Morgan. Even in such a bad situation, Slevin still tried to stay calm while talking to him. He even joked that Morgan's men had grabbed the wrong person. Their conversation moved slowly and was filled with hidden threats, mixed with Slevin's sharp comments. Eventually, Morgan explained the real problem. Nick owed him $96,000. Hearing that only made Slevin even more confused.
$96,000. Do you want to give me $96,000?
Carefully, Slevin asked if he could meet someone named Slim, the person Morgan had mentioned earlier. Not long after that, Slevin was taken to a remote place. There, a man named Slim was sitting inside a freezing cold room. The man appeared deaf and barely reacted when Morgan called out to him. That was when it was revealed that Slim was the man who had been shot in the parking lot at the beginning of the story. Since the shooting incident, his hearing had been completely destroyed. Afraid of the situation he was in, Slevin finally admitted that he probably wouldn't be able to pay the $96,000. But because everyone believed Slevin was Nick, and Slevin had no way to prove his real identity, Morgan gave him two choices. He either had to pay the debt or carry out a job for him. Morgan then explained that years ago, his beloved son had been murdered.
That was my son.
Since then, Morgan had been waiting for a chance to get revenge. The man believed to be responsible for his son's death was a rival crime boss known as Boss Rabbi. But Morgan didn't dare attack him directly. Instead, he wanted Slevin to kill Rabbi's son, who was known by the nickname Yitzchak. That nickname came from the fact that the man openly admitted he was gay and lived a very flashy lifestyle. Slevin was completely shocked after hearing the request, but he also realized that he was trapped. He had no money, no identification, and didn't even know where Nick actually was. In the end, Slevin had no choice but to agree to the job.
Because he's a he sprinkles magic dust all over the place.
As he was about to leave, Slevin still managed to crack his usual casual jokes, but Morgan immediately responded with a cold warning that if Slevin failed, the consequences would be very bad for him.
But you owe me $96,000 else when I've already paid you.
After Slevin left, Morgan held a private meeting with Goodcut, the hitman who had attacked Nick earlier at the train station. From their conversation, it slowly became clear that Slevin had never actually been expected to succeed from the very beginning. Morgan had already hired Goodcut to kill Yitzchok first. Meanwhile, Slevin was only being used as a scapegoat, someone who would later be blamed once the murder happened.
I'm gonna kill somebody.
On the other side, an old van parked not far from Morgan's building was secretly monitoring everything happening there. From the outside, it looked like an ordinary plumber's van, but inside, two men were actually carrying out secret surveillance.
There's a new face in town.
Back at Nick's apartment, Slevin tried acting relaxed, as if everything was still fine. Not long later, Lindsay came back and immediately invited Slevin to go to Hotel Cheval to investigate the mysterious phone call. Lindsay said she knew someone who worked at the hotel and might be able to help them figure out which room the call had come from. While they were talking, Slevin picked up a newspaper and read the front page story. The article was about a man named Slim who had reportedly gone missing. The name immediately caught Lindsay's attention because Slim had previously been connected to several mysterious disappearance cases. Lindsay's instincts told her that all of this had to be connected to something much bigger.
Dead guy?
Slevin then said that he felt like he had seen the man before. He even claimed that he saw Slim inside a moving morgue freezer. That statement only made Lindsay even more confused and curious. She also started questioning why Slevin was still wearing a towel and where he had actually been earlier. But before she could continue asking questions, Lindsay's phone suddenly rang. She quickly answered it because she thought it was a call from her contact at the hotel. While Lindsay was busy on the phone, Slevin started getting dressed. But the calm atmosphere didn't last long before another loud knock came from the apartment door. This time, two men wearing traditional Hasidic Jewish clothing were standing outside the door. They said that someone named Shlomo wanted to speak with Slevin. Slevin immediately insisted that he didn't know anyone named Shlomo at all. But just like before, Slevin's explanation meant nothing to the people looking for him. Without saying much, the two men immediately beat him up and dragged him away. This time, Slevin was taken to meet Rabbi. During the ride, Slevin started realizing something strange. Rabbi's building stood directly across from Morgan's building. One of the men explained that Boss Rabbi and Boss Morgan used to be extremely close, almost like brothers, but now they had become sworn enemies. The two of them lived trapped inside their own buildings, both refusing to show weakness or back down from the conflict that had lasted for years. The situation had even made them afraid to leave the buildings where they lived. Not long after that, Slevin was brought into Boss Rabbi's office, which was large, dark, and intimidating. Rabbi himself looked calm, but extremely calculating.
That hasn't been working out for me lately.
As one of the most influential crime figures in the city, he spoke carefully and always sounded completely in control of the situation. While sitting across from him, Slevin once again got pulled into a tense conversation. They spoke calmly to each other, but it was obvious that both of them were trying to read each other's thoughts and patience. Even though Rabbi sounded relaxed, every word from him felt like a hidden threat. Rabbi then told Slevin that he owed $33,000. Already tired of constantly being mistaken for Nick, Slevin once again tried explaining the truth. Patiently, Slevin explained that Nick was only his friend and that he personally didn't owe money to anyone. Rabbi listened to all the explanations without showing much expression. Then, coldly, Rabbi replied that none of it mattered. To Rabbi, whoever was staying in Nick's apartment now had to take responsibility. Rabbi gave Slevin 48 hours to come up with the money.
The first time somebody calls you a horse, you punch him on the nose.
After Slevin was taken away by Rabbi's guards, the truth slowly started becoming clear. Goodcut came out of hiding. Rabbi admitted that he had already transferred half of the payment to Goodcut to carry out Morgan's murder. The rest of the money would only be paid after the job was finished. Meanwhile, when Slevin returned to the apartment, he found Lindsay waiting for him. She looked extremely excited, as if she had just solved part of the mystery they were investigating. Lindsay explained that she had gone to Hotel Cheval, where the mysterious call had come from earlier. With help from someone she knew working at the hotel, Lindsay managed to find out that the man who called Nick's apartment was Goodcat. She had even managed to get a photo of Goodcat while he was inside the hotel elevator, but when she showed the picture to Slevin, he claimed that he didn't recognize the man. Even so, Lindsay kept telling the story. She said that she had followed Goodcat and tracked him all the way to a building. Out of curiosity, Lindsay decided to wait outside to see what would happen next. But not long later, someone came out of the building, and that person turned out to be Slevin himself. That only made Lindsay even more confused, because none of it made any sense.
Well,
despite all the confusion, Slevin finally started opening up to Lindsay and told her everything that had happened since the last time they met. Slevin explained how he had been beaten up, taken to meet 2 different crime bosses, and constantly mistaken for Nick. He also told her that both dangerous men were forcing him to do jobs for them under serious threats.
this is a rabbi. To scratch a debt that isn't even mine. I know, I don't even gamble.
Not long after that, Slevin met with Morgan again. This time, Slevin agreed to carry out the plan to kill Rabbi's son, the man known by the nickname Yitzhok. Even so, Slevin tried to buy himself more time. He asked for a full week to complete the job, but Morgan refused the request. Instead, Morgan offered a game of chess. If Slevin won, he would get 1 week, but if he lost, he would only have 3 days to finish everything.
I'll tell you what. You win this game, you get your week.
As the chess game began, Morgan casually explained that Yitzhok was not an easy target to reach. The man was heavily guarded by personal bodyguards who were all former military members with years of combat experience. Not only that, Yitzhok also always wore some kind of emergency button around his neck. If the button was pressed, armed security officers could arrive at his apartment in just 5 seconds. At the same time, more and more pieces of the puzzle slowly started connecting. Goodcat, who had been secretly moving behind the scenes the whole time, turned out to be the one who created Nick's debt problems from the very beginning. The real plan was even more cruel than anyone imagined. Goodcat intended to kill both Slevin and Yitzhok, then make it look like they had killed each other because of a troubled romantic relationship. When the chess game ended, Slevin finally lost. Morgan didn't change his decision. Slevin now only had 3 days to carry out the murder.
Nobody says I have to kill you quick.
After the meeting ended, Goodcat walked out of the room and slowly wandered around the area where Slevin was staying. Slevin watched him suspiciously, trying to understand who the mysterious man really was. In his mind, the possibility started growing that Lindsay might have been right about Goodcat all along. Meanwhile, outside the building, several detectives were watching from inside a van parked nearby. They were originally searching for Nick Fisher, but now they were becoming even more confused by Slevin's presence. The man was staying in Nick's apartment, being hunted by 2 major crime bosses, and had suddenly appeared in the middle of their investigation. The situation started making the detectives feel that something much bigger was going on. On top of that, they also received information that a famous hitman named Goodcat had returned to the city. The name immediately put them on alert because Goodcat was known for being extremely dangerous and difficult to track.
Goodcat.
People die, he vanishes.
When Slevin returned to the apartment, Lindsay once again brought new information. She explained that she worked at the morgue and had recently handled the body of one of Rabbi's bookies named Benny Begin. The man had died after being hit with a baseball. While Lindsay was working, Detective Brikowski came by and started talking with her. Brikowski said that Benny Begin used to be his personal bookie and often helped him take care of different paperwork. Now, the man he once knew was lying lifeless on a morgue table. Not long later, Detective Brikowski's attention shifted to 2 other bodies in the room. He asked how they had died and was told that both of them had been killed by poison. After connecting all the recent events, Lindsay started forming her own theory. She began suspecting that Nick was actually still alive and had intentionally dragged Slevin into all of this trouble. According to her, Nick might have paid a street robber to steal Slevin's wallet, so his real identity couldn't be proven. Lindsay also suspected that Nick was the one who killed the 2 bookies because they were the only people who had ever seen his real face.
Gangster to pay off a debt that belongs to a friend who's played.
Before going back to work, Lindsay invited Slevin to have dinner together. That night, while they were eating at a restaurant, something unexpected happened. Slevin suddenly spotted Yitzchok sitting at a table not far from them. Meanwhile, Detective Brikowski was conducting surveillance at several restaurants around the city.
Can someone tell me?
While checking one of the places, Brikowski accidentally saw Slevin together with Yitzhak and his bodyguards. Not long after that, Slevin started looking for a chance to make his move. Calmly, he followed Yitzhak toward the restaurant bathroom. Without Slevin realizing it, Detective Brikowski followed them from behind. But before the detective could get inside, Slevin had already locked the bathroom door from the inside.
It's not going to go down in the men's.
I got next.
After dinner ended, Slevin finally explained everything to Lindsay. He admitted that earlier he had intentionally pretended to be gay so he could get close to Yitzchak without raising suspicion. Slevin also told Lindsay that Detective Brikowski had met him in the restaurant bathroom earlier. According to Slevin, the detective admitted that he was indeed hunting for Nick, but Nick had disappeared without leaving any trace. Brikowski himself was already convinced that Slevin was not Nick. Even so, he was still curious about who Slevin really was and what his true purpose was. The detective also felt that there was a major connection between Rabbi Goodcat and Slevin.
Who the fuck are you?
That night, Lindsay and Slevin returned to the apartment together. They spent time getting closer to each other without realizing that the situation around them was becoming even more dangerous. For the moment, Lindsay felt comfortable being around Slevin. There was something about him that was hard to figure out, but that was exactly what attracted her. The next morning, Slevin dressed neatly and went out to buy 2 cups of coffee for himself and Lindsay. But on the way, the police suddenly stopped him.
I already talked to your buddies.
They started questioning his identity. When Slevin tried answering in his usual joking tone, Detective Brikowski immediately punched him to show that he was serious. The situation instantly became tense. Eventually, Slevin gave his full name, Henry Slevin Kalevra. Since the police had no legal reason to hold him any longer, they finally let him go. Not long after that, 2 of Morgan's men came to the apartment and brought a suit for Slevin. Afterward, they immediately took him to meet Yitzchak. At the same time, a shocking event happened outside the apartment building. Several of Rabbi's men were found dead inside their car. They had apparently been killed by Morgan's men. Slevin then arrived at Yitzchak's apartment, wearing formal clothes and looking completely calm. As soon as he entered, Yitzchak told him to grab a drink while he changed clothes. But before the atmosphere could go any further, Slevin suddenly pulled out a gun and shot Yitzchak directly in the chest. As Yitzchak collapsed, Slevin walked over to him and calmly apologized for what he had just done. But right after that, the apartment door slowly started opening without Slevin noticing. Goodcat entered the room while aiming a gun at Slevin. But instead of shooting Slevin, Goodcat suddenly shot Yitzhak in the head. At that moment, everything started becoming clear that Goodcat and Slevin had actually been working together from the very beginning. Every event had gone exactly according to their plan. After that, Slevin walked toward his car and opened the trunk. Inside the trunk was Nick Fisher's dead body. Meanwhile, inside the apartment, Goodcat calmly disabled Yitzchak's emergency button so the security alarm would never activate. A few moments later, the guards burst through the apartment walls. But before they could react, Goodcat immediately shot them one by one using 2 silenced pistols. At the same time, Slevin dragged Nick's body and placed it next to Yitzchak's corpse. Everything had been carefully arranged. The 2 bodies were positioned in a way that made it look like they had killed each other during a tragic lovers' quarrel. Not long after that, the apartment was blown up. But all of this still wasn't over. Goodcat and Slevin then took the elevator up to Morgan's office. On the way up, they killed the remaining guards, still protecting the building. After arriving, Goodcat immediately confronted Morgan, while Slevin went to meet Rabbi one last time. Morgan looked furious after realizing that all these events had actually been part of a massive plan carefully arranged from the beginning. Even so, Morgan admitted that the satisfaction of finally getting revenge was much greater than his anger. Morgan even swore that if Rabbi wanted war, then war was exactly what he would get.
If the rabbi wants a war?
On the other side, Slevin came to meet Rabbi while carrying a suitcase. Slevin said the suitcase contained money to pay off his debt. While talking, Slevin casually mentioned that lately too many people had mistaken him for someone else. According to him, using the wrong name often created chaos. But when Rabbi opened the suitcase, it turned out to be empty. At that moment, Slevin immediately smashed Rabbi in the head with the object in his hand until the man lost consciousness. Sometime later, Rabbi woke up tied to a chair. Sitting beside him was Morgan, who was also being held in the same condition. At first, they tried figuring out a way to escape, but it didn't take long before they started blaming each other. Morgan accused Rabbi of being the man who killed his son.
I wish I was.
But Rabbi kept denying the accusation. Suddenly, Morgan said that now Rabbi finally knew what it felt like to lose a child. Rabbi looked confused after hearing that and asked what he meant. With complete satisfaction, Morgan admitted that he was the one who killed Rabbi's son as revenge. Not long after that, Slevin appeared in front of them. This time, Slevin was no longer pretending to be a confused man or a weak victim. Calmly, Slevin started explaining everything. Slevin admitted that he was the person who killed the first bookie in the parking lot at the beginning of the story. He needed the man's notebook, just like he also needed the notebook belonging to the other bookie who had been killed at the office earlier. That was when it was revealed that all those murders had actually been committed by Slevin himself, including the killings involving poison and the baseball. Slevin had intentionally collected both notebooks to find the name of a gambler that appeared in both of them with an enormous amount of debt. That gambler was Nick. Slevin then explained that they found Nick at the train station, where Goodcat killed him and took over his identity. Because Nick owed money to both sides at the same time, Slevin and Goodcat used that identity to manipulate Morgan and Rabbi. All of this had actually been part of a revenge plan they had prepared for a very long time. Slevin also revealed that he was the one who killed Morgan's son using a sniper rifle. The murder was intentionally carried out so Morgan would be consumed by anger and eventually hire Goodcat to kill Rabbi's son. After everything started going according to plan, there was one important thing they had deliberately made look perfect. Slevin had to keep appearing like a victim so nobody would suspect him. To make everything even more convincing, Goodcat had even intentionally broken Slevin's nose when they first met. They also took advantage of both crime bosses' fear for their son's safety. That way, Slevin and Goodcat managed to gain full access to all of their operations without much difficulty. In the middle of the situation, Rabbi tried to bribe Slevin. He offered to pay him double if Slevin sided with him, but Slevin only gave a small smile after hearing the offer. Not long after that, Slevin's true identity was finally revealed. Slevin introduced himself as Henry, the son of Max, the man both crime bosses had killed years earlier. At the same time, Goodcat's real identity was also revealed. The hitman, feared by so many people, was actually the man who raised Henry after his family tragedy happened. Back then, Goodcat had once been ordered to kill young Henry, but after seeing the child lose his entire family, Goodcat went through a moral crisis and couldn't bring himself to do it. Since that moment, Goodcat ended up taking care of Henry and raising him into adulthood.
Specialist to kill a kid.
After all the truth was revealed, Henry began finishing his revenge. He placed plastic bags over Morgan and Rabbi's heads, then sealed them tightly with tape. The two of them slowly suffocated to death, the same way they had killed Henry's father years earlier. On the other side, another shocking fact came out. Lindsay was actually in danger because she had taken a photo of Goodcat. That meant Lindsay knew too much and was supposed to be killed to keep their secrets safe. Goodcat even told Henry that Lindsay couldn't be allowed to stay alive. Meanwhile, Detective Brzykowski finally received important information that revealed Slevin's true identity. Brzykowski discovered that the name of the horse Max had bet on years ago was Lucky Number Slevin. Brzykowski also found out that the name Kalevra in Hebrew meant bad dog, a clue that pointed directly toward Goodcat. At that moment, Brzykowski realized that he was also part of the revenge plan. Years earlier, Brzykowski had been the one who killed Henry's mother to cover up gambling debts and protect himself. Knowing that everything was finally over, Brzykowski simply sat silently inside his car. Not long later, Henry appeared from the back seat while raising a gun. Without saying much, Henry shot Brzykowski and completed the revenge plan that had been prepared for years.
Just sign my page.
At the end of the story, Henry sat calmly at a train station while watching people pass by. Not long later, Lindsay appeared beside him alive. That was when it was revealed that Goodcat had once asked Henry to kill Lindsay because she had evidence in the form of photographs, but Henry couldn't bring himself to do it. Instead, Henry chose to tell Lindsay the truth and helped fake her death so she could survive. Goodcat eventually learned about the decision and chose to let her go. As a closing moment, Goodcat returned Max's watch to Henry. The watch became a symbol of the past and a reminder of everything that had happened. Their revenge was finally complete. Without saying much, Goodcat walked away and left them behind. For Goodcat, everything was over. His debt had finally been paid.